So we have to kind of, agitate, organize around it and say, this is what we believe, and that's what the company believes. And we're all Teamsters, and we're going to fight like hell for what we deserve and what those part-timers deserve. And we're winning too.
Welcome to Fight Back Radio, production of fightbacknews.org, taking you to the heart of the people's struggle. I'm your host, Richard Berg, and we are today gearing up for the beginning of a battle between the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the 340,000 UPS workers who are threatening to strike on August 1st against United Parcel Service. This will be the largest private sector strike in U.S. history. And this is big news. For those of you who are followers of Fight Back Radio, our last episode featured Tanner Fisher, who's the president of Teamsters Local 90 in Des Moines, Iowa. And he broke down a lot of what this fight is actually about, what it's like to be a worker at UPS, and why this is important. And today's episode takes us a step further. We're going to actually do a forum that I hosted, that was sponsored by the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which is UPS Teamsters at the front lines. And at this forum, rank and file Teamsters, 3 rank and file Teamsters, basically broke it down and laid it out. But they talked not just about the battle at UPS, and they did talk about that in depth, but also how this has broader implications for the political economy in the United States. And brilliantly, I would say so as well. Also, as the host of the thing, I was asked to talk a little bit about my life in the Teamsters and with Freedom Road, and I did that. So you'll probably hear a little bit more about me than you have in the past as well. So, but anyways, I think we have this is a good show. This is a good follow up to the Tanner episode, and we're going to continue to cover the news of what's going on at UPS. Also for day-to-day updates on UPS and what's going on there, and reports from the front lines of the struggle, I want to encourage people here to go to Fight Back News, fightbacknews.org. Some of what you hear in this episode is not just what it's like to be a worker at UPS, but bigger thinking from people who are related to the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and why those connections are important to think beyond just bread and butter trade unionism. But also, just to say before we get into it, we need to support our sisters and brothers in the Teamsters, and anything you can do, whoever you are, as a listener, as we ramp up to the fight. There's been practice picketing the last week or so, and there may be more things going on. I saw Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters, told Joe Biden to keep out of it, that this is a fight between UPS and the Teamsters. I think that tells us his concerns about what side our government might walk in on. And we saw this with the rail workers. And so we want to keep the government out. We want the fight to be between the Teamsters, the public, and all the working class and UPS. And we want to win it. And this will have implications going forward. So anyways, rather than listening to me babble on, I want to have start the forum. So here's Freedom Road's forum on UPS from the front lines. Thank you all for being here. This is UPS Teamsters on the front lines. It's presented by the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And my name is Richard Berg, so I'll be the host of this tonight. We have a great panel of guests here tonight. But just I want to start out by saying a little bit about Freedom Road and about who I am, I guess. As I said, I'm a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. I'm a member of the Labor Commission, and am involved in have been involved in the labor movement for a long time. Freedom Road has been involved in the Teamsters and many unions across the country for many years, for decades, in fact. I was a member of the Teamsters. I joined the Teamsters in 1988, just to give a little background. And I was a member of Teamsters Local 743. I did not work at UPS. I was at the University of Chicago hospitals. And this was in our earlier days when we were experimenting with different ways of doing things. But through the years of cycles of theory and practice, we've developed, I think, what is a high level of work in the trade union movement. We chose to be involved at the university and in the Teamsters because its relationship in the private sector, its relationship to capital. But we developed theories, as I mentioned. There's a pamphlet we put out I want to point people to. It's called Class Struggle on the Shop Floor, a Strategy for a New Generation of Socialists in the United States. And it talks about how we look at the trade union movement. For me, in 1988, we joined the Maine Reform Caucus, which is called Teamsters for a Democratic Union. You'll be hearing about that a little bit from our guests today as well. But we went through a process of, fighting a very corrupt leadership in Local 743 back in the 80s and 90s. The local unions and the Teamsters, many of them, especially here in Chicago, where I'm coming to you from, were corrupt. There was organized crime influences, and it was a difficult time for us. But we were ultimately successful. We took over that union. I became the principal officer of Teamsters 743. It's a 14,000 member union, and but at that time, or shortly after that time, Jimmy Hoffa became the international president and did not want to tolerate the kind of things we were doing. And I think many of you are going to hear today from our panelists, and we'll give time for questions and answers at the end as well. But the Teamsters, it's a breath of fresh air right now. At least it looks that way to us. Sean O'Brien and the Oz slate has made a difference. The fact, even if just standing up and saying they're going to do the right thing. So, whatever the pavement, the tires hitting the pavement, or however they say it right now, is about to happen. And so the Teamsters are being tested and UPS is being tested, but there's a fight coming on, and we're up for it. We've been preparing for this in Freedom Road for some time, calling for it. These sellout contracts that we've had through several cycles. It's time, for us to fight back. But I wanted to say also that, in Freedom Road, we have a vision of, we need to have class struggle unions, and we need to put unions on a basis of class struggle. It's not like, let's make a deal and what will get the best thing with the employer. It's not, our interests are different than theirs. I mean, the old industrial workers of the world that when the 20th century is coming in, when they were fighting for industrial unions, used to say that the working class and the capitalist class have nothing in common. And that's our view. It's like, whatever money they don't give to the part-timers at UPS, that guess what? They put it in their own pockets. This isn't for the general good of society. And so we need to fight for everything we can get. During the same time period, the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. And I think that has to be how we look at things, and it is how we look at things. So in Freedom Road, we've been in, and you'll hear from people that have been in working at UPS for some time. We've been there. We've worked with militants to try to create a class struggle and to try to transform the unions, and we've had some success at the international level and the local level. We worked with Teamsters for the Democratic Union and other forces to try to create this class struggle unionism. Also, I want to say we have a vision of that to get rid, capitalism is going to keep us down, and that we need to have workers really run society, to have socialism, and for that to happen, we need to have a strategic alliance of the working people and oppressed nationalities. And we fight for working class leadership of the oppressed nationality movements, and we fight for a diverse, a multinational, Black, brown, everybody leadership of the trade union movement. And that's important. it's not like just another thing you throw out there. It's like that has to be central to what you're doing and how you're looking at trying to make things better within organized labor. So we see this fight at UPS as setting a tone for the entire country, and we're not alone. The bosses see this. Many other organizations have said that too. So we're glad that we're strategically placed. We're glad that we're in the front lines of where there's going to be a fight. We look forward to winning livable wages for all UPS workers. We look forward to the fight to stop some of the harassment, and we're happy about some of the gains that have been won already. So we look to have a militant, work with the militants, and we're looking forward to this battle. So let me introduce our panelists now, because I've been going on a little bit, and you want to hear from the Teamsters from the front lines at UPS. And so our panelists, we have three really excellent panelists. Jared Hamil is a package car driver, an elected Teamster shop steward in Los Angeles, California. He's worked at UPS for more than 11 years. He is also a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization and serves as a member of the Labor Commission. When he's not organizing, he spends most of his time with his wife and daughter enjoying hiking and the outdoors. So that's Jared. Also from Local 396, we have Jenny Bekenstein, who is a 2-year Teamster for 396 is in Los Angeles. She's a UPS part-timer and a shop steward on the preload. She's a proud member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And she brings another twist to this too. Before working at UPS, she worked at the Amazon warehouse, and she'll talk a little bit about that. And has been helping to fight to organize at Amazon. And we see, Sean O'Brien's talked about it, and we see this too. That we think this battle at UPS will be has implications for our ability as Teamsters to organize at Amazon, but also within the auto industry and other places that are going to come after us. Our last speaker will be Nico Hernandez, who's a part-time part-time worker and a package cover driver in Jacksonville, Florida. He has worked at UPS for 3 years. Has been involved in Teamsters for Democratic Union and his local union since day one. He is the youngest elected member of the TDU steering committee and the only part-timer on the committee. He campaigned extensively for the local 512 Teamster United slate in Jacksonville to reform his local union, and later for the Oz slate to bring back militant unionism in the international union. Working on vacation and sleeping in his car to campaign all over Illinois, in addition to Jacksonville, is a true fighter who believes in rank and file power and the need to build a militant labor movement. Before I introduce our first panelist, also I just wanted to say besides being your host tonight, I'm the host of Fight Back Radio, which is going to rebroadcast this forum, so you can tell the people who missed it or that they can catch it a week from today. It will be on Fight Back Radio, which is a podcast that you can find on any of the platforms. Also, I want to encourage everybody here to check out Fight Back News, fightbacknews.org. It's covering, it covered the practice pickets that were out there. It's covering all the different, day-to-day things that are happening at UPS. This is a place to get news and analysis of what's actually happening in this very important contract campaign. So I'm going to turn it over to Jared Hamil from Local 396. As I said, he's a Freedom Road member and a member of our Labor Commission and a full-time package car driver. So take it away, Jared.
Thank you, Richard. Like I said, or like Richard said, I'm a package car driver in Los Angeles. And I've worked at UPS for over 11 years. Before that, I was a tractor trailer truck driver I did that for some time. And even before that, I was a SALT for Unite here in an attempt to organize food service workers on a university campus many, many years ago. So let's get into it. I mean, as most of y'all know, 340,000 workers are about 15 days away from a potential strike, which is going to be, if we go on strike, it's going to be the largest in over half a century. I think since 1959, if I remember correctly. There's a lot of issues on the table, part-time pay being the biggest, forced overtime, driver classification, and, the issue of a second tier of driver called the 22-4. But basically, UPS, who made almost $14 billion in profit last year, who also benefited and padded their pockets during the pandemic, said they have no more to give. Currently, negotiations are at a standstill, and UPS has walked away from the table. And negotiators aren't going to be back at the table this week. So it's looking like we'll have 1 week of maybe them negotiating something, maybe not, before the expiration of our contract. Meanwhile, across the country, Teamsters have been picketing at their buildings and are getting ready, getting geared up. They're agitated, they're angry, getting ready for the strike. So the question is, how did we get here? Why are over 1/3 of a million workers ready to strike? I mean, that's a big deal, and it's not something that happened overnight, but it's the result of 20 years of struggle against concessions in our contracts, against sellout collaborating bosses and leadership in the union. It's about the struggle of winning new leadership in the union and fighting on the shop floor. And then for those of us that are in Freedom Road, we've been in these fights. We've been in these fights shoulder to shoulder. We've been on the shop floor for over a decade. In 2013, we organized a vote no against concessions in that contract, and that was centered around healthcare issues and cuts to our healthcare. 2018, we voted no again against the second tier of driver, the 22-4, where those drivers get less pay, less rights. And then in 2021, Freedom Road members were at the gates campaigning for new militant leadership. And we were a part of helping get O'Brien and Zuckerman elected into the international leadership body of the Teamsters. And today, we're still there. We're organizing, leading practice pickets, fighting the boss, filing grievances, and fighting for a strong contract, and gearing up for that strike. That's going to happen in about 15 days. And we stand to win a lot. If we take up the fight now and if we stand up, we could win everything. So let's talk about the issues. Obviously, part-time pay is the biggest issue, where part-timers make, minimum wage. And you're going to hear more about part-time issues later. But for us as drivers, a lot of us, the only way out of that part-time poverty is to get into driving. That's the only way, or to have 2 or 3 other jobs. So for us, we see it's really hard for a lot of people to get into driving, especially women with kids and things like that. It's hard because the driving job is so demanding. And as a driver, it's not about the pay that we're really fighting for. It's about the conditions. So I'll say this, the big issue I talked about was 22-4s, the second class of drivers that we're trying to get rid of. Those drivers get less pay. They make less than $10 an hour, less than I do, and they do the same job. They don't get protections and rights to bid on routes. They don't get reduced overtime like I do. They're more exploited than I am. And the company's taken full advantage of that. Another issue for drivers is forced overtime. We don't have like a 9 to 5 day. We don't have an 8 hour day. We work anywhere from 10 to 14 hours a day. That's the standard. We do have language in our contract that protects us from excessive overtime, but because UPS has so much money, they just constantly violate it, and they'll pay out some penalties, which is nothing for them. But meanwhile, we're out there till 9 o'clock. I'm, talking with drivers all the time. They're out there till 10, maybe 11 o'clock at night, delivering packages. So another big issue too is the forced 6 day, as we call it. During the pandemic, and it still exists now, it's in our contract, that the company in times of need will force us in 6 days a week. So we're working not only those excessive 10 to 14 hour days, but we're doing it 6 days a week. And, the company says in times of need, well, for them, there's always going to be a time of need when you're making so much profit off of us. So that's a big issue in our contract. And it's looking as though we're going to get rid of that language of being forced in 6 days a week. And then another thing too, for us as drivers, is the issue of air conditioning in the trucks. There is no air condition in a UPS package car. You always see us driving down the road with the doors wide open. There's a reason, because it's really hot in those trucks. There's no AC. In the back, it's even worse. I've clocked the back of my truck at 130 degrees or more. And, right now we're going through a little heat wave. So it's been pretty nasty recently. But other places around the country, it's worse than Los Angeles, especially in the Southwest. I've heard, in Florida, it can be pretty bad. But yeah, so heat illness is no stranger to a UPS driver. And, even I think it was 2 years ago, there was a driver in our local. He was driving in Los Angeles, but technically Pasadena, California. His name was Esteban Chavez, and he died in his truck during a heat wave. Died of a heat-related illness. Died while delivering packages. So, needless to say, drivers are out there. We're working these crazy hours, 6 days a week, and some of us are losing our lives for these packages, for these, for this company making this crazy amount of profit. And so we like to say, for us as Teamsters, there's a big demand for us is that we, work to live, not live to work. So what are we doing on the shop floor? It's not just, okay, pobrecitos, we're doing bad. We've got to fight. And we've been gearing up for this contract for more than a year. So what we do on the shop floor, and this is what I'm personally doing, is, agitating, my coworkers, getting them to, file those grievances, enforce your contract. What we do in our building, it's something that kind of originated out of our local. It's something called Teamster Thursday. We have a union huddle every Thursday, and basically we talk shop floor stuff. Huddle around in our center and, talk about the contract, talk about what our rights are. Recently, we've been talking a lot about contract negotiations and the fight for that. And we do a little bit of chanting and cussing at the same time. So we do that. 2 weeks ago, we had a practice picket where we had a couple hundred workers march around the building and go to like the other side of the building. We were chanting, being loud. We got a lot of support from, cars driving by. We turned a lot of management's heads. We made a lot of noise, and it was a very militant picket. And, we did such a good job that we're going to do it again. Not a practice picket, but a full on rally next next Wednesday. We're going to be out there again in front of the building, and this time Sean O'Brien's going to join us too. And we're going to be out there demanding a strong contract and demanding better rights for drivers, and especially better pay for our part-time brothers and sisters. But like I said before, we stand to win a lot. And it took years of action, years of struggle and organizing from the rank and file to get us here. Years of organizing for stronger contracts, trying to, vote down concessions, even when the previous administration under Hoffa Jr. rammed those contracts through. The fighting against sellout leadership. But bottom line is the working class is tired of givebacks. We're tired of sellouts in our unions, and we're going to take back what's ours. So obviously strikes are on the rise, and we're not going backwards. So with that, just thank you very much. And that's all I got for right now.
So thank you, Jared. We are going to have a question and answer period at the end of this. So if people have questions for Jared or any of our other panelists, I encourage you to write them in the chat. And we're going to, we're taking a list of those, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Thank you, Jared. We appreciate that. So our next speaker, our next panelist is Jenny Bekenstein from Local 396 as well. So take it away, Jenny.
Cool, thank you. So I'm a part-timer at UPS, shop steward, and member of Teamsters Local 396 in LA also. And I work on the preload shift. So that's the shift that loads the trucks for the drivers to take out and make their deliveries in the morning. So as you heard, part-time pay has been one of the main demands of the contract fight and is now a sticking point in the negotiations. So first off, I'm just going to say there's no reason part-timers should be paid less per hour. We still do a lot of the work to make packages move around the country, and we still make this company their record profits. So part-timers work very early mornings, very late nights, any hour of the day. There's a part-timer working at UPS somewhere in this country. And we generally work around 3.5-hour shifts, but they push so much work into those hours that we're basically doing a full day's work in half the hours. So that creates difficult and often unsafe working conditions. And as Jared mentioned about the concessionary contracts, pay for part-timers has fallen so behind in our previous contracts that at this point in LA, we are making minimum wage. So even if we were making full-time hours, we would still need a second or third job to make ends meet. But at this point in negotiations, UPS would still rather have us strike and have them lose profits than give part-timers the fair wage that we deserve. So this is important because part-timers are 65% of the workforce at UPS. So we're the majority. And we're also the majority of women who work at UPS. And that is not because we don't look good in the brown uniform, because we do. But there are a lot of obstacles to becoming full-time at UPS. Jared basically laid them out. The largest one for women is that women are primarily have the responsibility of childcare. And if full-time at UPS is completely unpredictable, there's no guarantee that you're going to get out at 6 p.m. to be able to pick up your kid. It's more likely you're going to be working until 9 or 10 p.m. At least a few days a week. So that's why it's hard to go full-time. But because of this means that women are overrepresented in the lower paying jobs at UPS. So even though our CEO, Carol Tomei, is a woman, and she made $19 million last year, most women who work at UPS are making poverty wages. So this is reflected in our society. In general, women work lower paying jobs as compared to men, and especially oppressed nationality women work lower paying jobs as compared to men and compared to white women. So this is an example of the material basis of gender oppression and national oppression, where sexism and racism are not just ideas that people have, but play a material role in capitalism, meaning corporations like UPS make super profits off of women because they pay them less. So it's not exactly that like women part-timers make less than men part-timers, but it's this gender discrimination brings down the standard for the entire working class. For example, there are a lot of single dads who are long-term part-timers at UPS, and they also get underpaid because of this low pay that's rooted in gender oppression. So this is not to say that men should say, wow, women ruin everything, but we should all be united against monopoly capitalists like UPS who exploit their workers. And that's what we've been doing through this contract fight. The national campaign started a year ago, and there's a common idea that part-timers are hard to organize because we do have issues of turnover, a lot of young people who might not see the value yet of like being involved in the union. But there are a lot of part-timers who have made UPS their career, and we have seen that part-timers can be organized. So how we did it at our hub was we started by enforcing the contract that we have. So fighting the boss on the shop floor, showing people what we're fighting for, and getting people involved through like little issue fights. We also started Teamster Thursday on our shift, which Jared explained, which is usually in our local done with drivers, but we made it work on part-time shifts by doing it in like the 15-minute break that we have. And it's basically, yeah, like he said, to just share like any union events, contract updates, things going on in the hub, and to really build unity and spread information about what's going on. Another thing we did was we started a contract committee. So we would meet, or we still meet after work every few weeks to plan contract actions like the practice picketing or the rally that we have coming up, or any plans we have to pressure the company in this period. So the goal from all of this is to get as many members involved as possible. And in our hub, I think we're very proud that there's no one who doesn't know what's going on there, or no one who hasn't been invited to something. So it's been very successful to organize part-timers, both in our hub and nationally through this contract campaign. And that's been with the help of the international leadership and active members everywhere. So part-timers are definitely ready to strike, so ready that a lot of people are asking why we haven't started yet, which kind of shows that UPS demands so much from us. And so we are ready to demand a lot more from them. So I'll just talk briefly about like the implications for the broader labor movement, because these are issues larger than UPS. We can see this is any job in the United States. All workers are exploited and underpaid under capitalism. So for me, I've had 25 jobs in my life, which is kind of impressive because I'm only 27. But most of them were very short term. I never agreed with the saying quitters never win, because I would quit a job after a week if it was bad, and I feel like I have one. So, but this is my first union job, and the first job where we as a bargaining unit of workers, we can fight for our demands and strike if we don't get what we deserve. So that's the vehicle we have. But unfortunately, union jobs, especially in the private sector, have been in decline for decades. So we actually, in addition to improving our own conditions, we have a historic opportunity as Teamsters and as unionized workers to raise the standard for the entire working class in this contract fight and pave the way for more workers to unionize. So I'll use Amazon as an example because, that was the job I had before UPS, and because the Teamsters have a national campaign to organize Amazon workers, which I'm also involved in. So Amazon, as you've probably heard, Amazon's a bad job. Like there's very little job security. People get fired left and right, and they have nothing. They can't debate it at all. They can't come back. Workers are heavily monitored. So like they always know where you are, how much you're working, and they'll harass you to hurry up. And there's also a lot of injuries that the company doesn't take responsibility for. So not to mention that they don't have a pension or healthcare or anything like that. But the one thing, and this is like the biggest obstacle to organizing Amazon right now, is that they make higher pay than, for example, UPS part-timers starting out. So for organizing, a lot of Amazon workers are young, so they might care more about having higher pay in this moment than, for example, a pension. And if they see like, oh, UPS workers make less than me, they're going to be like, why would I unionize if I'm going to get a pay cut? So this is a really real obstacle. But if we do win higher pay in this contract at UPS, it would raise the bar for the logistics industry and for all working class jobs, because wages are competitive, meaning if a huge monopoly corporation like UPS is paying $25 an hour, other companies will be forced to increase pay to convince workers to work there. And another thing is that when we do win this badass contract, other workers are going to look at it and will make the logical decision to unionize and become Teamsters too, or any union, which this historically it's been seen that after there's a big contract win, other workers see the value in unionizing and fighting, and they'll sign up to fight their boss too and win better working conditions. And especially if we do strike and show that as workers, striking is our most powerful tool to get what we demand, and that's the only thing that really does strike blows to the company and make them listen, other workers will see that and use the tool of the strike to win their own demands. And with this tool, we will build a stronger labor movement overall in our country.
Thank you, Jenny. Excellent. And you have the best backdrop of anybody. And I notice my union, the Chicago Teachers Union, has their signs in the backdrop that you have there too. So thank you for that. As I mentioned earlier, for people that have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will get to them after we conclude the panelists. Our final panelist is Nico Hernandez, who comes to us from Jacksonville, Florida. So Nico, take it away.
All righty. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you all today. My name is Nico Hernandez. I'm a rank and file Teamster out of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm a part-timer, a cover driver, and a shifter, meaning I move around the semis in the yard. I distinctly remember my very first day at UPS. It was me going in on a very hot August day, August 9th, 2020, and went to the Cornerstone, what we called our training room. Did that for a day, and then I came back the second day and went into a hot corrugated box truck. The first thing I remember is I brushed up against the wall of those trucks and I burned my arm because of how hot the working conditions are at UPS. The third day I fell out, I vomited outside of the truck because of how bad it was. And on the sixth day, I saw these plucky young Teamsters outside flyering, talking about working conditions, talking about, the unions, Teamsters, the rank and file movement. And it was intriguing to me, especially since I believe I was pretty woozy from a heat stress that day. So, I took a flyer and, I got involved, and here I am today. I'm a steering committee on TDU. TDU is a grassroots reform movement within the Teamsters. We seek to reform the international and the local unions to build true rank and file power in their union. Well, what does that mean? It means that the workers control the union bureaucrats, not the other way around. We're not going to take directives from high up from these sellout, lazy bureaucrats. All they want to line their pockets. No, we're going to fight for a union that works for us. TDU accomplishes their task of building a militant union by getting reformers to take power in their local unions, by building rank and file power, by educating workers on their legal and contractual rights, and most importantly, by creating spaces for Teamsters to meet other reform-minded Teamsters across the country and build a true workers' movement. Now, organizing in the South is hard. We don't have the better conditions that other folks in non-right-to-work states have. We don't have a union culture down here that many others have managed to build over years and years of struggle. That has never really existed down here, and it's been a long-term task of socialists like myself to build something like that. And I think we've done a very admirable job in doing so. We face incredible opposition. A great example, during our union campaign here in Jacksonville, we had many people who loved to come up to us and say, "Viva Castro! Oh, look at these communists running for union election," when really it doesn't matter what our politics are. We want workers to own their workplace and take control of their unions. And to some people, the reactionaries in our union, that's not acceptable to them. They want the go along, get along model, but we stand against that. In Florida, we're the very first right to work state. It's a law designed to destroy unions, an inherently racist law. Its first implementation by a guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he was a well-known racist and anti-Semite. It allows freeloaders to reap the benefits of union negotiated wages, health care, work rules, and representation without being required to be a member of said union. These laws put an undue burden on unions' finances and workers' ability and unions' ability to represent all workers. We've also been facing a lot of attacks from Governor Meatball Ron in the union sector. This new Senate Bill 256, which came out, which caused all public sector unions to be forced to reach a threshold of 60% of all workers to be able to continue being recognized by the state as unions. Now, this, among many other cases, shows what it is like to unionize in the South. Now, what have we been doing to counteract these types of attacks? In the South, we in Teamsters beat the anti-reform, go along, get along, business unionist the Hoffa leadership in 2016 and 2021. We did that through massive grassroots rank and file action across the South. We brought people in, we flyered, we hit the gates, we talked to our coworkers, and in the end, we won in both years resoundingly. Now, that's a huge accomplishment because the South has been a long hotbed of reactionary trade unionism. Recently, here locally, we held our very first practice picket ever. And us as TDU, we brought the majority to rank and file workers. Our local couldn't do it. We could because we believe in the rank and file. We don't believe in just, selling them out, having meetings with management, going to the steakhouse and, just having a good old time with them. Every Thursday, we get out and we petition and we flyer and we get information to the rank and file. We make sure that this union doesn't just work for, the top up bureaucrats, make sure it's working for everybody, that everyone knows their contract, that they get the information that they need to know, and that they are able to build the union that they deserve. Think about people to say about part-time. It's full-time work with part-time hours. We don't have an easy job, but we have to make do what we have and build from there to build the solidarity with which we can create the jobs that we deserve. And that's what I believe the Oz administration has been going for. We supported them in the 2021 election, and we won. We won by a 3-1 margin nationally, which is very impressive. And Freedom Road and TDU and all these organizations came together to really build this coalition and help make the Teamsters a true democratic union that works for the members. Recently, I was fired, Jared mentioned earlier, for a forced 6 punts violation. Management came in, they said I had been working 6 months straight of 6 days a week. I needed a day to move. And management said, you can't move. We own you 6 days a week and you're fired. And, these are just the things that we have to push back against. And thankfully, I won my panel case. But, this is going on across the country. And once we start organizing around these issues, we can fight back against it. A couple of weeks ago, we got the news, so our 6-punch discipline is gone. And part of that is through our activism, through us working together to get these changes pushed through, because if we hadn't voted out this last leadership, we'd have never won the 4-6 discipline getting rid of. And that opens up, 2 days for yourself, the old labor slogan, a true weekend. So I'd like to give it back to Richard. I appreciate being able to speak to you all today.
Oh, thank you, Nico. Big round of applause for our entire panelists. Thank you all. As I mentioned, we're going to be taking questions. Some of you have put some questions into the chat already, and I encourage others to do the same if there's things you would like to do. I think I saw somebody said that we'd reached our peak of people. So we're going to rebroadcast this on Fight Back Radio. So look for that for people, if you can tell people that weren't able to make it today. Since I'm the host of Fight Back Radio, I'm going to give another shameless plug for it. Our current guest is the Local 90 president of Teamsters Local 90 in Des Moines, Iowa, Tanner Fisher, which is also an excellent, it's about UPS. It's about the same things we're talking about today. So if you haven't had enough after this fabulous forum, you can go check out Fight Back Radio, the podcast of the people. Okay, so the first question I have is from Cindy, and she asks, what is class struggle unionism? And counterposes it to business unionism, but you could, I suppose, counterpose it also to social justice unionism and all kinds of other unionisms that different people have said. And so I'm going to just pick Jenny out of the mix to comment on that. But any of our panelists who want to, after Jenny speaks, want to speak to it, feel free to answer that as well. So go ahead, Jenny.
Sure. Yeah. So class struggle unionism is, like it sounds, putting unionism on a class struggle basis. So whereas business unionism focuses a lot on kind of just like people's pay or going in and dealing with the company, union in the company without rank and file participation. We believe in class struggle unionism because we want members to run their unions, and we want unions to fight not just for their individual workplaces, but for the working class as a whole. So that means taking up other issues, for example, we live in LA, so it's important that our unions take a stand on things that really affect all their members. Like for us, it's immigration is a big issue. So we would want our unions to stand up for different things that go on in society and push back against any like capitalist attack, like for example, what's going on in Florida, and also to make sure we are fighting the boss, because a lot of business unionists will kind of just, I think it's how we would categorize the other contract fights of just concessions from the company, cost neutral type of agreements where the company gets some, the union gets some. We want everything from UPS and from all corporations. We don't want to give anything back. And we have done well in this contract so far. In terms of that, so far there's no known concessions. But yeah, that's what we would want for class struggle unionism, is to really fight the corporations that are exploiting workers, and to make sure we're winning everything that can be won as unionists.
Jared or Nico, do you want to comment on this? Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, Jenny gave a great answer, so I'm not going to say too much. I can speak to it in terms of, class struggle unionists wants, fights on the shop floor. They want, the members to be, engaging in the fight on the shop floor. Traditional business unionism is file a grievance, file a piece of paper and never hear from, your business agent again, and we'll work out a deal. Class struggle unionist understands that there may be a deal to make in terms of some sort of temporary compromise, but there's always going to be that opposing contradiction. Always the worker against the boss, the capitalist class versus the working class. Recently, and people are shouting out Joe Burns's book, Class Struggle Unionism. I'll do the same. It's a great book. But that said, I mean, social justice unionism, that's kind of a more recent endeavor that some unions have taken up. And I think one is, everybody knows SEIU, obviously. My wife is a rank and file member of SEIU. So, in those cases, they don't have workers fighting on the shop floor. In fact, if you show interest in unionism and things like that, the objective for a social justice union is to take you out of the workplace and maybe go lobby a politician or something like that. And sometimes that needs to be done, but it's not to replace the traditional class struggle fight, the fight in the workplace where everything begins.
You want to comment on that, Nico?
I think Jared and Jenny have covered it pretty well.
Okay, sounds good. Yes, next question comes from Calvin, and he talks about how do you fight the corporate propaganda, on the shop floor, and how do you fight union sellouts who are buying into that? And maybe why don't you kick us off on that one, Nico, if you could?
Sorry, just pulling up the question on the Google Doc. Alrighty. Yeah, so it's a difficult fight against the sellout. I mean, especially within the sellouts of the union. I can talk about it for an hour about the sellouts we've had in 512. We've had grievances unheard. You get completely ignored by the union officials. I've had them curse at me. They don't disrespect you openly in the workplace and out of work. The best way to fight them is simple: organize. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but it's the only effective way to counter the power that the entrenched union bureaucrats have. They might have their shop steward network, but you can go around that by building a true rank and file network of folks who ignore their shop steward, ignore their business unionist, and only follow the contract and their fellow brothers and sisters in the workplace. It starts simply. It starts talking to your coworker, the guy on the box line down from you, the guy unloading the trailer with you, the guy cleaning the chute with you, the girl, up in the tender belts, sorting packages. It's not easy. It's a long-term project of, making connections and speaking with people inside and outside of the workplace, going to barbecues, getting to really know people and forming that solidarity and that community connection that needs to happen in the workplace to be able to go forward with that and be able to challenge the entrenched bureaucrats that call themselves your union leaders when really they're the people that are there to mediate the class struggle, to try to not so much as fight for you, the worker, but try to keep labor peace in the workplace. The first one, the first question, the fight against corporate propaganda. We see that occasionally. We've seen that with our union, the contract campaign. UPS has been putting out some crap about how we make $20 an hour starting out and all this nonsense about, oh, we have world-class healthcare. Well, oh, great, world-class healthcare. Does that pay your rent? Workers generally see right through this type of stuff. It's not so much that you have to counter it as much as you just have to let them know what the company's putting out, and they see right through it. They live on the shop floor. They understand their working conditions, and it's a pretty simple thing to get through to them once you just publicize it. Jerry?
Yeah, I can say a few things about it. We're going through this contract fight, and so I can think of one specific thing that's kind of going on right now. In terms of company propaganda, what the company's trying to do right now is trying to pit part-timer against full-timer, or full-timer against the part-timers. Because the biggest issue right now that's keeping us away from having a tentative agreement is a fair, livable wage for part-time workers. And so the company knows that if they reward their small section of full-time force, maybe they can prevent a strike from actually happening. So what they're going around and doing is saying, "You really going to strike for that part-timer that can't load your truck? You really going to do that? And actually, unfortunately, there's people even within the union that regurgitate that line, whether it's your coworker or even some officials within the union, like a business agent or something. And so what do we do about it? Obviously we can't keep quiet about it. We've got to inoculate people. And something we've done in terms of our Teamster Thursday meetings is we've specifically talked about that issue. It's like we tell them, look, that's a company line. That's what the company wants to pitch you against the guy that loads your truck. or the mom that loads your truck who can't go full time because she's, taking care of her kids right after that, right after she gets out of work at 9 a.m. They want you to not stand with her. And guess what? We're all Teamsters here. Who does it benefit when you're talking crap about, the part-timers? So we have to kind of, agitate, organize around it and say, this is what we believe, and that's what the company believes. And we're all Teamsters, and we're going to fight like hell for what we deserve and what those part-timers deserve. And we're winning too.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jared. Jenny, I got a question for you from Carlos. He asks about organizing around working conditions on the shop floor, and how do you do that? And what's the basics of it? How do you approach your members, and what do you look for?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, we do have a contract. It's thick. There's most things, and workplace issues are covered under it. So, especially as shop stewards, our job is to make sure it's being enforced, which if you work at UPS, you know that it is not most of the time, because the company will do everything they can to violate our contracts so that they can exploit us even more, or have their supervisors jump in if they need extra help, which is not allowed in our contract. But basically we take any issue, like, for example, there was an issue of like a workplace speed up recently in our hub, and people on that conveyor belt, because that's what we work off of, they spoke up about it. And like Jared said, our process is by filing grievances, but it's also I don't think it was the grievances that were filed about the belt being sped up that made it stop. I think it was us actually going and basically harassing our supervisors and our main manager about why one of the belts in the building is moving faster than the rest of the belts. It's not fair. It forces people to go faster. People also weren't able to keep up, so they were being disciplined for not following work methods when really the company was just pushing too much onto them. So it took like a few weeks of literally every day having a little group of us go to each supervisor and confront them, like, how does it make sense that this belt is moving faster? And finally, they actually gave in and slowed it down, and took a bit of the workload off of that belt, which now everyone on that belt, I mean, it's still super hard work, but they're super excited that they were able to, or we were able to win that, and make sure that at least they were getting treated equally, like as compared to the rest of the building. So that's one example of something that was affecting everyone. We also, Jared had a really successful fan campaign, but something we're working on right now is it's really hot. There's no AC. And we are trying to get more fans installed. So we're working on figuring out how we can pressure the company to get us more fans. But we're going off of Jared's example, which was a success. So I just asked him to share his story.
Go ahead, Jared.
Oh my. This was many years ago when I was a part-timer. But I say, screw the fans. Let's go for AC. How about AC in the building? So many years ago, obviously the summers are extremely hot, 90 to 100 degrees, even more than that. And so, the heat just gets trapped in the building. There's no AC. It's just a big warehouse. And our hub is like, I think built in the 50s or something like that. So it's pretty old. So obviously not well ventilated, et cetera, et cetera. So heat related illness was definitely a thing. People would be like loading trucks and then feeling sick, vomiting, passing out, kind of like what Nico was talking about. Very common to see that. And so we're like, we need some fans, like this is ridiculous. We don't even have fans in here. And so we did a couple of things, as part of a campaign, something that, took place over an extended period of time. but we did all sorts of things. We did a petition. We took a few workers and marched on the manager in her office. We filed safety grievances. We called OSHA, which didn't do much. We were wearing fan buttons, like we want fans. And so, yeah, eventually over the course of a couple of months, we were able to get some fans up there. It took quite some time. And then I went driving. I didn't even get to enjoy the fans. But I say, let's go for AC now at this point. I've got some other examples, but I'll leave it at that.
Actually, I want to go back to you, Jared, if I can. So there's a question from Sarah about the Freedom Road Socialist Organization rank and file strategy, as they call it. And, why do, you've been 11 years at UPS. Why send people into the rank and file? Why not just get staff jobs or whatever? And why is this strategy the one that Freedom Road has?
Well, Freedom Road wants to build, an organization among the working class. And, obviously, we're not, above getting working class jobs, number one. Number two, we want to lead shop floor fights, and we want to find active people, active leaders, active workers on the shop floor. And we want to be there shoulder to shoulder to not only, take up that fight, but, to learn and to be a part of it. So that's like the basis of it is, we are an organization in the working class, in the multinational working class. We're not above it, and we're in the lower sector of the proletariat, as we say, and we're part-timers, we're full-timers. And so it's very important, if we want to build a revolutionary organization, is that we do so, by being there in the working class, not above it or outside of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Nico or Jenny, you want to comment on that?
I'll just say it wasn't staff of unions who got us to this point in the UPS Teamster contract campaign. It was the rank and file. And that's how it should be. It should be members leading their own unions rather than staff-driven unions. And yeah, I think we're proud to be part of that. And it's definitely the place to be if you want to organize among the working class or as revolutionaries like us in the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. So I would say, if you're someone thinking about joining the labor movement, or you're already in the labor movement, or you work at UPS, I would say, and if you want to both work on things like contract campaigns, but more than that, of kind of dealing with the larger issues of capitalism in society, I'd say you should join us in the FRSO.
All right. Nico, do you want to comment on this?
Oh man, you're always leaving me for last, Richard.
Yeah, you have the wisdom. You can give it the final.
Yeah, I mean, the real thing about the rank and file strategy and the importance of it is that you are among the working class as opposed to outside of it. If you get a staff job, you are merely. It could be like any other job. It's like getting a nonprofit job with a union veneer, right? You're working for a union, but you're not working with the union. You don't have any political control over your union. You're completely beholden to the power structures that exist within your union. You're at will. You can get fired at any time. And you're not fighting the boss every day. You're working somewhat for a boss, right? As a rank and file member, not only do you sometimes you have to fight the company, you have to fight the union, but that's where the true struggle is. The struggle isn't at some highfalutin level where you're, arguing with, the strategy with your direct boss about how to manage a contract. The real struggle is you as a worker with your contract fighting for you and your coworkers.
Yeah, well put. I'm a union staffer. I spent decades as a rank and file fighter, but I think you said it very well, Nico, as did the others. But it's, if you work for a union, the politics of the principal officer, sir, are your politics, and if they're not, you're going to be fired. So, the power's in the workers, and that's really, I think, if groups like Freedom Road that realize that the power is in the workers, and you're trying to build a revolutionary organization, you have to have strength amongst the rank and file and use rank and file democracy to build the class struggle unionism. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go back to you, Nico, actually, though. Maria asked us about fighting 2- and 3-tier wage systems, and how do you do that? What's the strategy that we bring to trying to fight that?
Yeah. So these 2- and 3-tiered contracts, 3-tier especially prevalent in the UAW. Now they've been, they're a cancer among any contract. They're a poison pill. They're ultimately designed to destroy the union, destroy the negotiated benefits, wages, healthcare that's been, kept strong through many, many years and many, years of negotiation. What they're usually doing, they're selling out the unborn. Everybody in the current union, we don't have to worry about the 2-tier. That's for new people coming in. And if you don't have the ideology to back that up, if you don't understand the long-term view of unionism, you'll go through with that. Okay, we're keeping our health care, but the new guys, they get screwed. What you need to do is you need to build up workers to stand up against those things, understand that your future worker is you. That's going to be your son. That's going to be your grandson. That's going to be, your friends, your family, your community that's going to be shafted by these 2- and 3-tier contracts and the inability to really make it to the top scale and to reap the true benefits of what workers have fought for over decades in a lot of these contracts. So it's really just building up the power of workers, standing up against these, educating the workforce on why these should never be implemented, these 2- and 3-tier contracts, and fighting against that tooth and nail at the bargaining table.
So, Jared or Jenny, do you want to make a comment on this? Or?
Sure. Obviously the capitalists, want us to pit each other against each other, and when they institute these 2nd tiers or 3rd tiers, which they've done in our current contract, they want to pit a worker and sell out the unborn, so to speak, and, reward the existing worker. So when they retire, which will be in 2-3 years, guess what? The folks behind them get paid $10 less. And who wins from that? It's kind of like the struggle that we have with, the getting the full-timers to stand in solidarity with the part-timers. It's about solidarity, and something that we need to do, as, rank and file activists is fight against, the tier system that'll always, look, UPS is going to try, and every company is going to try and do that because they want to whittle away what we have. They want to pay us less, and we're always going to have to fight that. That said, I don't know what union has been able to do this, but we stand to actually get rid of a 2nd tier. We already have like a tentative agreement on getting rid of the 22-4. So I know the UAW's got the big 3 fight. So I'm sure that's going to be talked about too, upcoming after we're said and done. So yeah, it's about solidarity. It's about getting your coworkers to stand, with the future. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. We're starting to wind down here. I'm looking at a last question from Josh. It says, how do Freedom Road members organize in UPS to push beyond economic demands and connect this struggle towards building a revolutionary movement for socialism? And I want to take that question, but also give people here, our panelists, an opportunity to expand beyond that question. If you want to throw anything in for concluding remarks, and anything that we didn't bring up in this thing. And before I go to the panelists for that, I want to remind people that we're going to broadcast this a week from today on Sunday the 23rd on Fight Back Radio, so you can look for that there. And if people that missed this, they can catch it there. Also, continue to look for Fight Back News to follow the UPS strike, but also it reports from the front lines of the class struggles. So I would encourage people to look for that as well. So let me take it to you, Jenny, maybe to start us off here, if you could, and deal with Josh's question, but also anything else you wanted to answer.
Sure. So through this contract fight, we have a lot to win, but it also kind of shows the things that we can't win through a contract at work. So kind of like we've kind of already talked about it, but just that these issues are larger than just UPS. It's a society-wide issue here in the United States under capitalism that workers are exploited. And we do work to build socialism by kind of showing those contradictions in society, building a movement to actually end corporate exploitation of workers, which is what we're fighting in this contract fight, but on a larger scale so that we don't have to deal with it at all. And we do that through building organization, finding like-minded people, and trying to build our organization towards that. I think we're in the best place because the labor movement is a really important place to organize from, because that's where the working class has the most power against corporations, is joining a union and being able to fight the very people who exploit us. And so that's kind of how we do our work, at least our labor work. Of course, we're an organization that does a lot of different things, especially in labor and the oppressed nations, fighting national oppression in the United States. But that's our main goal, is to overthrow capitalism and build socialism in the United States.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to go to Nico next, but before I do, I wanted to, if anybody wants to get more information about Freedom Road, to be involved in the UPS battle, we have Michaela, who's our behind-the-scenes guru here. We'll put in the chat. I forgot what you call this, like Airtable, and you basically click on that and sign up, and we'll have somebody get back to you. But thank you, Jenny. Nico, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I just like to reiterate that point. Organizations like Freedom Road are really at the forefront of building socialism in the United States, and the fight at UPS and beyond. They've been intimately involved with that, and I'm happy they invited me here. And everyone on the call should get involved if you aren't already. How do we go beyond the UPS contract? How do we use this power at UPS that we're building to push further into socialism? It's a long-term project. Involves, like I think I've said 20 times, organizing, and it's difficult and it's arduous. But every day, each one of the members of TDU and other organizations, we fight to build these types of connections, to connect workers together, to eventually understand what our final goal is. It's not just a good contract at UPS. It's not just get this concession from the employer. That it's really to liberate ourselves from the oppression of the capitalist class, and that's very well embodied by the egregious management at UPS, just sadistic people. Way we push beyond that, eventually UPS is an incredible economic bottleneck. Socialists for decades and centuries have understood that organizing at transportation choke points are where we need to be if we want to affect the broader economy through political strikes effectively. And by organizing ourselves within these critical transportation junctures, we can utilize that class power to be able to shut things down when they need to be shut down. So that's our interim goal.
Okay, thank you, Nico. And Jared, you want to answer the question? Anything else you want to add as well?
Sure. The struggle for socialism and the fight against capitalism. Through this contract campaign and through the fight, we're all very active, in the workplace, and, whether it be practice, pickets, rallies. along the way, you know, we have to identify, like, you know, what's these particular issues we have, the issues of the conditions in our workplace, the issues of low pay. We have to connect that to a much broader and larger thing, which is exploitation, you know, from the capitalist class, and oppression, national oppression, like what we experience here in Los Angeles in the Southwest, and beyond. We have to connect that. And along the way, we do find advanced folks. We do find fighters that want to join with us. And, you know, we're a growing group. We're growing like crazy, actually, you know. So that said, I mean, going back to that, and what we're doing here as UPS Teamsters this is a historic fight. You know, it's taken us a long time as workers, as rank and file, to get here. And all eyes are on us. All eyes from, you know, the labor movement. And of course, the ruling class is watching this as well. Contracts come and go. And the issues that we face at work, the cruelty of exploitation that we face at UPS is shared by the entire multinational working class in the United States. The owners of UPS, the banks, the ruling class, they rule over us beyond just the workplace, but even when we're at home, when we're in the streets, when the state wants to kill a Chicano or a African American, you know, shoot them dead. Or whether it be issues of healthcare or education, the fight for, you know, affirmative action. All these things are connected, and it's because the ruling class, you know, puts them down on us. So if we want to take their boot off our neck, and if we really want change in this country, we're going to need more than just unions fighting for a better contract. We're going to need a revolutionary party led by the multinational working class. So I urge everybody on this call, you know, if you're not part of Freedom Road, please look into it. Join with us. If you want to be with us, join in the historic fight. Thank you very much for being on this call, and have a good Sunday.
All right. Thank you, Jared. And that's a good way to end it. So people, if you look at the chat, the Airtable link there, if you sign up there, we'll get back to you and talk to you about that. The Freedom Road Socialist Organization, hopefully you were inspired to check that out some more. It's frso.org, but also, you know, there's you can sign up to be a member, and people will get back to you there. So please do that. And I think, you know, this was a good program. I think we have a fabulous set of guests. Thank you, Nico Hernandez, Jenny Bekenstein, and Jared Hamil. And, you know, look for this again, as I said, on Fight Back Radio. And thank you, Michaela, for helping us out with all the difficulties behind the scene. And thank everybody here for taking time from your Sunday night. You're the rock stars that are going to make the change in this world. So we appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so much. UPS Teamsters on the front lines, formed from Freedom Road Socialist Organization, and I hope you got something out of it. It takes us, I think, a little bit of a step further. For those of you that are new to Fight Back Radio, I want to encourage you to subscribe, give us 5 stars, thumbs up, follow us, whatever. All those things help people follow us, and also help you follow us, because it'll be downloaded to your iPhone or whatever on a regular basis. And I think I'd encourage you also to go back and listen to some of our previous episodes, both on labor, Black liberation, women's rights, all the things we've covered from the heart of the people's struggles, as we say. So please do that. Also tell a friend, you know, pass the word on about how people can get a hold of this forum that you just listened to. But also tell them, you know, hey, check out Fight Back Radio. It's kind of cool. So, anyways, I want to you know, thank our production team: Dodd McColgan, Natalie Pranis, Vince Olson, and Shane Tremley. For the entire Fight Back Radio team, I'm Richard Berg, saying until next time, all power to the people.
I wonder if that's my mom's name. I wonder if she's on here.
Oh, she probably is.
Tell her I said hi.
Yeah.
Yep.
You could say hi to her in the chat.
I'll just let, she doesn't know what Zoom is. It ain't her.
Neither does Jared.
Yeah, he's on here.
Oh my God. It was just ridiculous. I don't know.
Richard was about to have to take your place.
I know. I was like, it's me, Jared Hamil. I can
Surprise.
pretend to be you. That wouldn't be that hard.
Are you sure about that?
Just talk about mattresses. You'll be good.
Yeah. They're like, everyone's
I
like,
actually prefer to talk about the pillow. Tempur-Pedic pillow.